Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien versus Predator Galaxy podcast. This is episode 181, and this is regular host Aaron Percival, aka Corporal Hicks. And joining me is my fellow Predator hunter.
Adam Zeller, aka RidgeTop.
And who are we talking to today, Adam? What's
We
this?
are talking to the writer and artist of some of the recent Marvel Predator comics, Ed Brisson and artist Netho Diaz.
Indeed. And this was another good fun chat. I enjoy all the chats we do. We talk to a bunch of cool dudes out there, which is great. Although, if you're watching the video version, this won't be behind me because I went away for work and forgot. So I had to make sure I took my laptop with me. So I'm recording from a hotel room. But it still turned out fine. It still turned out good.
Yeah, good conversation. I've really been enjoying what Marvel's been putting out. The Predator side of things since the beginning, Aliens took a little bit to find its footing, but Predator's been great. And so it's been cool to talk to some of the creatives that brought the writing and the art to life in the first two arcs for that.
Indeed, definitely. I do enjoy how Predator's just been an upwards. It's just got better and better as it's gone along, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what happens with the third arc. Right, shall we let Ed and Netho entertain us?
Yep. So without further ado, here's the interview.
First off, Ed, Netho, thank you for joining us on the podcast today. Like I was saying earlier, we're going to be nerding out. We're going to be picking the nitty gritty little details from your minds about your time on Predator. Sorry. But before we do, could you just tell our audience a little bit about yourselves? Who are Ed Brisson and Netho Diaz, and what do you guys do? Ed, you lead us off.
Sure. Yeah. Comic book writer. I've been working for Marvel and DC and Image and others for about a decade plus now. And that's about it. I'm just a comic book writer. I've worked, let's see, I've done obviously Predator at Marvel, X-Men, did Old Man Logan, Dead Man Logan, Iron Fist, Ghost Rider. Over at DC, I did Batman and Robin, I did Batman Incorporated, and then I did Deathstroke Incorporated, and then Batman and Robin Eternal several years ago. Done a bunch of stuff over at Image, like Sheltered, Come Back, The Violent, etc. I've got a new creator-owned book that's just coming out called The Displaced, which is out through Boom, February 14th on Valentine's Day. So it's a perfect gift for your sweetie.
How about yourself, Netho?
I am comic artist. I have been working with comics for 10 plus years, about 12 years. And I'm from Brazil, so you can probably see that. I work for Marvel since 2022. So I'm pretty young in the Marvel universe as an artist. Before Predator, I worked for on Thunderbolts, Legion of X, Vanish, that was at Image by Ryan Stegman and Don Cates. And before that, I worked for a few years in G.I. Joe, Dungeons and Dragons, Aquaman, Justice League, and a couple other stuff.
So both have been around the comic world quite a bit there. That's a lot of titles between the both of you. A lot of franchises.
Yeah.
And we also, sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
I was going to say, Ed, with you mentioning X-Men, we're working on that. I know you said you're busy, but have you had a chance to check out Wolverine versus Predator yet?
I haven't read it yet. It's on my to read pile. I love Ben's work generally, but it's one of those things where I don't know. I'm waiting until I'm done my Predator stuff until I go back and read it.
Just in case of any crossover influence.
Just not even that. It's just a weird hang up I'll have sometimes where I'll just won't read any similar projects to what I'm working on while I'm working on it, for better or worse. But yeah, it's on my pile. I am excited to read it. but
It
not
is
quite
it
yet.
is a very good run. So you should enjoy that when you get to it. Adam, anyway, sorry, go ahead.
And we always love to ask our guests about the first time they ever encountered the franchise we're talking about, whether it be Alien or Predator. Do you remember the first time you ever came across Stan Winston's Legendary Hunter? Was it one of the films or something else?
For me, it was Predator. The first Predator. I saw it in the drive-in theater when I was a kid. When did it come out? Was it 87?
Yep.
I believe so. So yeah, 87. I would have been about 12. Christ. So yeah, I saw it at the drive-in theater, and it completely just blew me away. And then I think I taped it off of Super Channel when I made it Super Channel, which was like our version of HBO growing up. So it was the movie channel. So I had a tape of it that I kind of ran into the ground. I must have watched it about 100 times as a kid.
Oh, so fellow fan then. And how about you, Netho?
I watched the movie a few years ago, and probably for the first time. And when I was to be hired for the comic, a couple years before, I have just bought the Predator versus Batman that I love. I
That's
love the
another
art, I
good
love the
crossover.
story.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And Rodolfo Damaggio, which is Brazilian guy, I love his art. And I was just starting coming back to the franchise just for fun when they hired me for the book. So I was pretty excited to receive this invite from Marvel.
So that's some good timing then, because you almost jumped in on that without having watched it there.
I haven't watched the third movie, which was the source material for the series,
Okay.
but Ed told me that I should watch the movie to get the feeling of the story, and the movie became one of my favorites. I like how they develop the characters much better than the first one. The effects are better. The story is, you can relate it to each character, where they are from, and I think uh, it improves our experience. So I like the third movie much more.
Okay.
The third one, Predators. That one's your favorite?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
nice. Yeah, Aaron and I really like that one. I think it's underrated.
Yeah, definitely think Predators is underrated. And it's a part of why I enjoyed the Preserve so much as well. So I'm glad to hear that, Netho. I appreciate your appreciation of Predators there. Well, what about you, Ed? Do you have a favorite and why?
I think my favorite's the first, just I have so many memories attached to it. That yeah, it just stands up. But I really love the third one as well. I think it's really good. There's just like a couple of things in there that always rub me the wrong way, but like the rest of the film I really love. And yeah, I thought it was such an interesting idea to push the franchise forward rather than sort of rehashing the same story over and over again. But yeah, the first one followed by the third. Actually, and now Prey is up there for me. I think it's quite solid.
So I'd be interested in your writer point of view there on that one, because you said pushing the franchise forward, and a lot of people tend to give Predators crap, and I think it's entirely unfounded crap for it being a repeat of the first one. I completely disagree with that criticism. What about you? How do you feel on that one?
I think you could make that argument, I guess, that it repeats some, like it does. It's a similar people trapped in the jungle fighting predators, but I think it does do some interesting stuff in pushing it forward and showing that they do train, like they capture humans, bring them there, and train on them. That they have. It's the first time in film that we really get to see them outside of Earth. We get to see them in more of their own natural habitat. So I think it's the first time in film as well that we see, like, I guess in the second film we do see the skulls in the ship, so we do get the impression that they're hunting aliens all over the galaxy. But in the third film, we actually see the aliens, and so we get a bit more of that. and there's just part of like me that really likes the idea that the maybe it's like just serving fans, but that the fact that the other alien on there was the original Predator design, right? That was what's now called the River Ghost design.
That's a little bit of a misconception.
Yeah, but it is though.
No, it was. We all thought it was, but they based it on the Guyver alien.
The Guyver. Really? Because I was always been under the impression that was the River Ghost.
Yes,
original Jean-Claude Van Damme Predator.
No, it's fair bit different. The Predator has a reference to the original, the Boss Studios one. The red special effects suit, but no, River Ghost was based on the Guyver alien. That's what the KMB guys said.
Well, interesting. I've been proven wrong.
Like I said, we're nerds. We're nerds.
But that was really cool how you included those aliens in your recent comic. It was good to see them again. You can see the actual prop. I think it's in Las Vegas at the movie prop experience in like the old part of Vegas. They have it there.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen that?
Check it out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Have you took photos of that one? I don't think I've seen.
Yes. Yeah, I'm still working on something for that.
Okay, cool. So, one of the strengths of the Predator franchise is the individuality of the Predators themselves. And, of course, this is one of those nerdy questions that we all love to talk about on, the social groups, on the forums and everything. But, what's your guys' specific favorites or portrayals? And, Netho, lead us off with this one as the artist.
That's a good question. I love the claws. I think there are some elements that doesn't change, even though the armor change, the face change here and there, but the claws are always there, and I think it helps to make the action much more hunting than high tech stuff. I don't like to use the high tech action with predators. I think the hand-to-hand combat is much more interesting to draw and to see. So when I started to work in the comic, I looked into those Kev Walker pages, and I think he nailed it. The design of the armor, design of the characters, design of the predator, everything looks great, even though looks a little more cartoonish, which is very different from what I approach to the story. But overall, the face and claws are some main elements that you can't go wrong. You have to try to do them work to people to buy the story.
Do you have a specific design from a design as a whole, perhaps from any of the other films or the other comics that you have, think is a personal favorite or anything?
The first one, definitely.
There we go. Can't go wrong.
You can see that my designs are mostly based in the first one.
Okay. How about you, Ed?
Yeah, I like the Jungle Hunter from the first. It's just classic. It's the one that set the tone. I really do like. I do think that what they did with Prey was really interesting as well, for like almost like a less evolved version of the Predator. I just love how different it looked from the others, but the Jungle Hunter hands down is mine.
Okay, I think you'll have a friend in Adam there. He's very much a fan of Feral, aren't you?
Yeah, that's one of my faves. So, how well versed were you both in the older Dark Horse expanded universe? Ed, I'm assuming you were very, or have since become, with things like the introduction of John Schaefer in the new upcoming series.
So yeah, I've read the Dark Horse. Like I read the Dark Horse series years ago when it started. When I can't even remember when the first one came out, like 91 maybe, somewhere around then. So I read those when they first came out, and then I didn't read them again for years until I started working on Predator. I read the more recent Dark Horse stuff, but not the older stuff. So I went back and read through all of it, and yeah, I'm trying to originally for the first 2 volumes, we wanted it to stand on its own. We didn't want to have to rely on pre-existing stories in order to kick ours off. But with the third volume, we had this interesting opportunity where we could sort of pull in from some of that stuff. The John Schaefer stuff, I was trying really hard to keep secret, but then Marvel went and put him on the second issue cover. So
Yeah, they really shouldn't have. For that solicitations, I was like, oh, that would have been so awesome not
it
knowing
was
that.
Yeah, and hopefully for folks who read the comic first and will listen to this after, look at the second issue cover, that will be a surprise for them because it's something that happens at the end. I had tried to push. Originally, I really wanted to use Dutch, but that was just like a no go. But John Schaefer obviously is like, is such an important figure in the Dark Horse series. So it was nice to be able to bring him over and sort of bring these two worlds together.
I'm surprised they didn't let you use Dutch because they unleashed him again on Hunting Ground. For the longest time, creatives weren't allowed to use him, just in case they did in the films. Was basically what we were told. Yeah, they unleashed him for Hunting Ground, so we felt like that restriction had gone.
Apparently I don't know if it's it might just be different though for the comics. I'm not sure. It was one of those things where I asked and I absolutely knew they would say no. But you have to kind of push anyway. And but John Schaefer is a great consolation prize, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
If you want to call him such.
That's interesting. I think this is the first major plot element that's been carried over from the Dark Horse era to Marvel. I mean, I think in some of the Alien comics, some things have been hinted at from Dark Horse, but
you had like the Grant Corporation mentioned, I think, but nothing this significant now.
Yeah,
so that's exciting.
You're right. Hopefully folks think it's exciting. I was pretty excited to do it.
And how about you, Netho? Have you explored the Dark Horse era much yourself?
Only the Predator versus Batman one, the full arc, because in Brazil we don't have Predator comics here.
Oh, did they not translate them?
No. The one versus Batman is the only one. I think that might be another one or two, but not many stuff. Mostly crossover stuff.
Fair enough.
And how did you both become involved with Marvel's Predator? I believe you both had already worked. Yeah, you had said you worked with Marvel on other series before. So did they just approach you about this project, or?
Yeah, I got approached during the pandemic to see if I'd want to work on Predator, and I can't remember if I mentioned this last time we talked or not, but when I was younger, when I was a kid, I used to write what would be called fan fiction now. Obviously, it was not called that back then, but I'd written a bunch of I love horror films, and I used to do a bunch of every horror creature, like battle royale fighting, against me and my friends or whatever it was. But I wrote a bunch of Predator stories as well. And when they approached me about, see if I'd be interested in writing Predator, I'd had this idea from when I was 12, still sort of tucked away, about this girl whose family is killed by predators and she goes after them. There's a lot that's different about it, but the very seed of an idea came from when I was younger. And I was able to sort of take that and expand and build upon it. And, it's what you read now. But yeah, I don't know if they knew I was a big Predator fan when they approached me, but I just remember them asking if I would have any interest, as though there was a chance I might not, and I was very excited at the possibility.
Eddie, did they change anything from your pitch?
From the original pitch, yeah, there were a few things that got changed. It's very different from the thing I wrote when I was a kid. I changed, obviously I'm older, and the concept changed quite a bit. I think there wasn't a ton that was changed, although I think originally when we first started talking about the series, it was supposed to be ongoing rather than a series of minis. So I had built out a much longer plan, and then we had to cut it down, and so that much longer plan had to be like sort of condensed. Um, but yeah, and so that was the main thing. Other than that, they kind of, I think what I originally had for arcs 1, 2, and 3, we changed because that first story had to be condensed down. That once we had reached the ending, it was the ending of that story, and so arcs 2 and 3 didn't make sense anymore. So that's why now we did the preserve planet for the second arc. That was not originally the plan.
So
But yeah,
it
it
would
was
have been
just
a much
mostly condensed.
okay.
It was
So
a much more sprawling story. Yeah. So Theta originally wouldn't have met the predator she was hunting for something like 18 issues. So, it would have been much more sprawling.
And over a longer period of time.
Yeah. It would have. Well, the series would have taken like over the course of probably the complete 18 issues. I think would have been over like 3 years. It was meant to take place. So, but even now, like between the arcs, the first arc, the second arc, the third, we jump 5 to 6 years between each one.
Yeah, before the comics happened, I think we were told it was going to be an ongoing, and we were expecting longer arcs than we had gotten with Dark Horse. But it seems like most of the arcs are kind of in that same Dark Horse format, where it's like 4 or 5 issues, and they move to a new story.
Yeah, it seems to be a system that works well for them, and just it's easy. It's like nice and compact to get those stories out there. You get the trades out there, but
And
they're
they're
as
still,
a writer,
narratively connected as well, anyway, aren't they? Even if you're not.
Yeah,
The huge
that's absolutely
long
was a
form.
plan that like Theta was going to be a character who would carry us through all of our stories. So there was always that plan to keep things going. I think there is like connection between the first two. There's a larger connection between 2 and 3. So yeah.
And how about you, Netho? How did this project come across your desk?
I had just left Marvel to work on Vanish from Don Cates, and I told Marvel that I couldn't get the following projects they had in mind for me, which was Alien instead. So the script was very late, and I came back to Marvel and asked for work, and they gave me Murder Words from Jim Zub to draw just the last chapter, and I was fine with that. I just needed one issue, but when I was wrapping up the layouts stage, Sarah approached to me and asked me if I wanted to work on Predator, which was 5 issues, right? The first issue, 30 pages. And I was very excited because with the loose deadlines she gave me, I could work on both books at the same time. But I was starting the day working on Predator, then I went to Vanish because Predator is much more complex to draw, many characters, too much background, jungle stuff and ship stuff and Predators, the pilot armor and stuff. So when I finished one page, I started to draw Vanish very quickly to be able to deliver in time.
Is it more fun for you when they're complicated, or is it just a bit? Yeah, it's like I've got to get this done in time, or is it a yes, this is more interesting for me to work on kind of thing?
It depends on the page. There are some pages in the comics that are much more fun to do, and on others you have to do to make the story work. So I try to find something fun to make me happy on each page. On Predator, I was enjoying very much doing all the backgrounds and inside the ship, the halls, the trees, the ships, people expressions, and make they feel real. The fear in the eyes. You know, each page I was trying to find something to make me happy, to entertain myself.
But you made us happy as well. Very much enjoyed the visual style of this one. especially
Thank you.
especially the fear that you got in a lot of these characters as they're being gutted and filleted and everything. It was yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you.
Also, I'm curious, I'm sure this probably differs from comic to comic, but what kind of level of coordination do you guys have as like writer and artist? Is it very like structured where the script is done, it's sent to the artist, or is it like you're bouncing ideas back and forth during the whole process?
I think with this one, the script was already done before Netho had come aboard, if I remember correctly. Because it took us a long time to find an artist for the second volume. Sarah and I kept going back and forth, and it's actually because Netho had been working with Jim Sub, and I was talking to Jim at a convention, telling him, and he was like, "Oh, you need to check out this guy." And then I saw the work. I'm like, "This is perfect." So I emailed Sarah, and but I think I was already like on issue 2, maybe writing it. But Netho and I would get on Messenger and chat back and forth while he was working out pages, or if there were things that came up. So I think like the outline and a lot of that was already there, but we would sort of go back and forth on pages and stuff. If Netha wanted to try something or had some ideas or questions or whatever. So we did keep in contact pretty regularly.
Yeah, yes, but that's because Ed opened the channel for us to communicate. Because right before, on another work I was doing for Marvel, I sent a message to the writer to help me out with something that was very complex, and I wasn't quite understanding what he wanted me to do, and he didn't responded me. Instead, he sent to our editor and said, you know, Neto, he sent me a message. Tell him to not to do that. So after that, I haven't done that anymore. So I wait for the writer to, give me this chance to communicate. I think it's much better for the book after all.
Yeah, I imagine it really does help, having that sort of chance to clarify things and actually get what the writer is wanting from, is wanting from you.
Absolutely.
Did you have the
Absolutely.
same sort of relationship with Kev as well, Ed? Was the communication there?
We were less. I think I find that with sort of creators who've been at it for a long time, that sometimes they just take the script, they go off and do it. Kev would send me some periodic questions and stuff. But every time I work on a book, I like the process to be as collaborative as possible. And the way that larger publishers work, the artist is not always involved in the conception stage or the early scripting stages. So to my mind, it only makes sense to involve whoever I'm working with as we are working on it, to at least get that sort of collaborative feel. That's a real bummer about the story with the writer, uh, saying not to contact them, which it feels weird to me, because like that's the part of the job I enjoy the most, being able to talk with the artist and being able to sort of like problem solve together. And sometimes artists will be like, this is what if I tried this different approach or from what you have scripted. And I'm always open to those conversations. I like those conversations. I feel that always just makes the book a better in the end.
So, Ed, one of the elements of your run that is quite rare in the expanding universe is time setting. It is not near future. That's a misnomer, isn't it? It's a little bit in the future. We're traveling. We're traveling around planets, and there's faster than light travel, and not many stories outside of the Alien versus Predators are set in the future. This setting opens up a lot of avenues for you. Like space travel, like different non-predator aliens. Where did that narrative decision come from? Was that one of the things you had in your fan fiction from before, or was that something that came about as you were developing it with Marvel?
That was my idea, and it was largely so that I could sort of put the story far enough out that I didn't have to necessarily worry about any other like films or whatever coming out and sort of messing with what we were doing, or contradicting it. I wanted to put it far enough out that we could just not sort of be I'm not bogged down, but like we could get a little bit of space between us and other continuity and open ourselves up to do something different. And I thought going into the future was just an interesting take because we hadn't had that with Predator in the past. We haven't had sort of space travel, humans doing space travel, and Predators. I wanted to set it further in the future. Not much further. I think right now the latest one I'm doing is set in 2068, so it's like 40 years in the future. Initially, I think I wanted to go to 21 something, but my editor at the time, he wanted to bring it back to, I think we did the first one 2050, 2040. Yeah, part of it was just to sort of give us some separation from past Predator stories, free us up to tell stories. We could tell different stories. And I won't lie, there's part of it was like I wanted to get it sort of close to the Aliens timeline as well, because it's only inevitable that there is going to be an Alien versus Predator book at some point down the line. There's still no plans to do one that I'm aware of, but so I wanted to get us close enough that if that were ever happen, that Theta could be a player in an Alien versus Predator series. So those are kind of where I came from with that.
I mean, well, you've introduced a new way of making sure that happens. The Predators keep folk on ice now, so
yes, that's not coincidental. That's now that we've introduced stasis.
So something I'm curious about there again, from your point of view as a writer here, you mentioning being concerned about other films stepping on your toes in the future, so to speak. Alien, just to go to the side a little bit there, Alien is very well known for the first three series is suddenly becoming, irrelevant in quotation marks because of what Alien 3 came along and did and killed off all the characters that those.
Right.
How conscious are you of that when you're working on, franchise stuff? I don't want another film to come along and make this, not canon or.
I don't really think about it too much, to be honest. Like it's more like I'm giving myself space to be out and not as concerned about things that exist. And that sounds like I'm waving things off. I'm not. It's just like it just gives myself some space. I'm not necessarily worried about a film coming in and invalidating, or another book coming in and validating what I've done. Largely because I just don't have any control over that. If that's going to happen, it's going to happen. There's much more money to be made in film than it is comics, and so if they want to do a Predator film that invalidates everything that happens in the Marvel thing, I don't think that the studio is just not going to do it because there's a comic that already exists. And so, yeah, it's just, I don't think about it too much in that regard, just because I know there would be nothing I could do about it, and I would just worry myself for nothing.
And something we're curious to hear about is the level of freedom the artists have in regard to how the Predator is depicted in the comics. So how specific do you get as a writer in terms of their designs, and how much control do you have, Netho, as an artist with the visuals?
I'll just say quickly, as a writer, I try and usually step back and let the artist come up with designs. We'll give like some notes because there's the studio has like very specific things that need to be in some of the designs. But otherwise, I can't even remember what our process was like, Netho, when you designed the first.
There are some things that they really don't want to change. For instance, the claws that must be on that hand. It doesn't have on both hands. Or the shape of the mask as well. They make me fix some panels because of it. But mostly this. They, I don't know, they didn't pick too much. They had me a lot of freedom, and I tried to use classic Predator's designs instead of going in a different direction. As Kev Walker, he did some crazy different designs and works very well because he's so talented. but I don't have that talent to do another fantastic armor such as he did. So I tried to go simple and classic instead.
Yeah, I thought your Predator designs in the arc were all very strong and memorable. Um, this next question is aimed more at Netho, but Ed, maybe you'll also have some thoughts on how this influences your writing. One of the trends we've always seen over the years when it comes to comics and games is how the visuals tend to reflect more of the recent films. And it's something that is usually attributed to the ease of reference material. So, starting with you, Netho, we were curious if this was something you found yourself coming up against, and if you had any thoughts on that. Like, and you had already mentioned the original Predator was kind of a primary reference for you, but were there any other from more recent works like Prey?
Um, I think mostly for the weapons. We used some video games references for the weapons, axes, swords, and stuff like that. But mostly this. I mean, go classic, you can't go wrong, you know. But for the humans characters, uh, Eddie gave me some descriptions for each character, descriptions for the predators he wanted me to design, such as the rip it off helmet, and one without helmet, and one with helmet. And he came up with some names just for me to know who is who while I was drawing them. Do you remember their names? I think that was
I
Slash
sorry,
Blade.
I really should. They were like really simple names. I remember just to help differentiate the three. I think it was like Slash, Blade, and Claw were the three
Yes,
predator names,
yes.
which was largely just to define their major sort of like design characteristic within the book.
It's about
That
on
design with
brand.
the ripped helmets is a
Yeah,
great idea. It's not my idea, it's Ed's. And turned it out in the first issue, it looks great.
Mm.
When he turned out to look people running away from him, and he looks very scared. You can see in his eye how madness is coming.
Well, I mean, there's storytelling in that visual alone. In that damage. His visual storytelling of the past that he's had as well. I've always appreciated that kind of modification to a predator's look.
Absolutely. I believe everything that must to lead to a better storytelling. So at this point, I was sad because this particular predator dies in the first issue, and he's my favorite design. Was having so much fun drawing him, and his head just explodes, and it was sad to me. But it was great to use uh, that detail to make it work and make he looks scary. Even though because when I was drawing them, I had to think which way I was going to, because in the movies there is an actor who's in mask, so his head looks, you know, kind of big. And for the comic, people usually look to the predator and see the silhouette. If the silhouette works, then the drawing works. But to make the silhouette work, you have to do a bigger head. So I'm trying to find a balance
Yeah,
with the big and smaller to make it, looks real. So we wouldn't feel that it's someone inside a you know a mask or something.
that's fair. I think didn't Alec Gillis mention stuff about that? When we spoke to him, Adam, about the differences between artwork and the physical um, suits that they designed, again, due to that. They're having to take into account there is a man in there. The proportions are going to be a bit different to how people would draw them, in the fan art or official art, sorry, so
Yeah.
to say, which was an interesting perspective to hear from him. Ed, did you have any thoughts on that? And we're not saying that this is particularly noticeable in the Preserve or anything like that. But you have things like in Day of the Hunter where it's the Predator's interpretation of the ships rather than say Predators or the first one or anything like that.
So yeah, I think for a lot of the reference, like a lot of the ship reference, I think we got like the clearest shots of ships from Shane Black's The Predator, right? Like, so like a lot of times I just will have to grab reference from where it's available and where we can get it most clearly, like most clear shot of it. I try though to like, I think I took a lot of reference from the first two Predator films, obviously from
Yes.
Predators because of the setting was the same for our second volume. But yeah, in terms of like getting the reference material, I just throw the movies on and take screenshots, where I can to get what I need, which is its own problem because a lot of the streamers try and block you from actually taking screenshots,
Yeah.
and it becomes a real hassle.
That's fair. So
I
just
also
to
I think that I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, Netho. I'll come back to it.
Okay. On this matter about the ship, on the last page of issue 3, we can see the cockpit of Predator ship. And I actually looked to the movies and tried to find some good reference for this shot. But you know, you can't find something good to draw just right from it. So I tried to evoke the mood of his ship with just one picture I found on Google. And I tried to, if you have your book here, yeah, on panel 4, I actually tried to write something. Ed on script told me what to write on Predator Scream. I don't remember right now, but something I'm looking for them. I'm trying to find them or something like that. And I tried to write it in Predator language, but ended up in the publishing page they removed that, and I
Oh,
have no idea what they put here.
gotta hate the removal of the fun stuff like that. We love trying to decode the languages and stuff like that when they're included in the artwork. It makes for extra little detail that's lovely.
Yeah.
So Ed, you said this is the same preserved planet from Predators.
Yeah, that's the idea. It should be the same planet.
Okay.
Cool. There were a bunch of things I wanted to do to like kind of crystallize that, and unfortunately, kind of got shot down because in our Predators we're not allowed to. So going back to the whole Dutch thing, we're not actually really allowed to use any of the film characters at all. And I had at one point I had put something in there, and I'm blanking on the character names, Adrian Brody and the woman who survived Predators.
Royce,
I wanted to have some little sign from them that they had been there at least.
Yeah, that would be
but wasn't able to get that in, unfortunately.
So in the Day of the Hunter, Captain Ferrier references Astor trying to avoid being swallowed by a bigger company. So we were like, is this a reference to Weyland-Yutani? So I was curious, is that a deliberate nod to Weyland-Yutani? And on that topic, Predator is very closely tied to Alien. What do you both think of that close relationship and how it impacts Predator when it comes to standalone stories such as these? And Ed, you take us away on that one.
So I'm going to be like cagey on this. So does it mean Weyland-Yutani? Like, I don't want to confirm or deny that it does. But I will say once again, like I've been trying to plant some stuff that if an Alien versus Predator comes up, that there's some stuff that's been seeded from the beginning that makes sense for it to happen. As to like the relationship between Alien and Predator, I don't know. Like, I don't like try to let it influence or impact the story I'm trying to tell, like, very much or at all, really. Like, I still want to tell my story. I do like planting like little seeds like that, where like these are things that we could come back to and develop later. But overall, it's not going to have a huge impact on the story that I'm telling, because I want to make sure it's just like it's a Predator story, and I don't want it to feel like it's an appetizer for an AvP story.
I actually believe it's more like what Marvel wants to do. So I believe they will have some crossovers between arcs. So when this arc Eddie is working on wraps up, they will do another crossover, perhaps with Punisher or Daredevil, and two blinds punching each other, and or even Alien vs Predator. I don't know. And it's more like what they want to sell instead of what makes work for the story, in my opinion.
And as Aaron and I are both huge fans of the third film, Predators, we absolutely loved you revisiting that preserved planet concept in the second series. The third film, as we mentioned, doesn't really get the appreciation we feel it deserves. So we were genuinely surprised to see you picking up that story concept. Did you face any difficulties in pitching a spiritual successor to a film that's not generally as well regarded as the others? Why don't we start with you, Ed?
Yeah, I did not get any pushback. They seemed actually pretty excited about the concept of doing another story set there. And there was some stuff that that we did in that series that I thought for sure they wouldn't let us do. But the licensors, the Predator people have been really supportive throughout. We've had very few things where we've maybe disagreed, like very, very few. And on this, they were supportive of that. Even when we introduced this idea that the Predators are taking people from different times and keeping them on ice and releasing them. I thought for sure that was going to get killed, but they were cool with that. They were really excited about it. They were quite supportive. So uh, I think they recognize that there's a lot of story potential still out of that planet and the people who end up there. So they were cool with it.
So
Yeah, I don't know. Uh, I feel like when Eddie had the chance to do that, he kind of make people think differently about the movie. So if you watch the movie before and now you read the comic, you may want to watch the movie again and think about that particular detail. Are those people from different times? So I think somehow he could add something to a previous content, you know. So I think that particular choice made everything very strong in this storytelling.
I will say I did get in at least one joke about the only thing that kind of bugs me about Predators. It doesn't bug me, but it with some of the characters where they're secret serial killers, I still am like, I don't understand how the Predators would know and how they would kidnap them. And that I think I have a joke somewhere in there that someone makes some sort of comment about like a Predator. Not a surveillance team, but basically, some sort of like secretarial team that is keeping track of all killers on Earth. But
That would make for an interesting comic. Like, how do they
sure,
select these individuals to be abducted?
sure,
Absolutely.
bureaucratic predators.
I mean, it's something we've joked about as well in the past, and I like to joke about the Predators are just they're on vacations from being dentists or office workers or whatever back on the planet. Which it is, it just seems silly, doesn't it, when you think about it? How are they tracking these serial killers and etc. But it could also open up some interesting avenues for
Mm-hmm.
predator surveillance and all that kind of stuff.
Perhaps a one shot telling the story would be interesting. How they
Yeah.
pick the victims.
We
Mhm.
haven't had a Predator annual yet, Ed. You know?
Yeah,
There you
well,
go.
they haven't asked me. I know there was
Ah.
one plan that ended up instead of doing the annual, we're doing this new series. So it's
I mean,
more
I'll
Predators.
take a series. Yeah, I'll take a
Yes.
series over an annual quite happily. So this one's a bit of a controversial one, possibly, Ed. So Theta's depiction in the first series drew some criticism due to the way she won more easily against the Predators. But then when it came to the Preserve, the second series, she found it much harder and only really won when she had the element of surprise or assistance from her allies. So a bit of a multi-part one. Could you tell us about the origins of Theta as a character? But I guess you kind of covered this one, but maybe more about the development of her and the journey you've taken her on in the arcs. Was that a reaction to the response to that criticism of Day of the Hunter?
No, not really. Because I think like some of the criticism was like frustrating. I had to deal with a guy at a con who was just like, he was clearly just angry that she won because she was a woman, which was like a little bit like frustrating to deal with. And I felt that some of the criticism was steeped in that. One of the things we really wanted to do in the first arc was really just establish Theta as this sort of unstoppable force, that she was as deadly as a predator, and she wasn't, she wasn't fighting at a handicap like characters are in past films where they don't know about the predators until they encounter them. She knows them, she's studied them, she's got ships, she's got weapons, she's got their armor, and she has learned how to track them, so she has the opportunity to get the drop on them as well. So our plan really, that first arc, we want to just really establish how deadly what she was, and then once we did that, we wanted to then make her the target of predators and then make it harder. And then she's getting older, and she's sustained a ton of injuries. She's like lost an arm, she's lost a leg. It's not like she's not without her scars. It's not like she's won every battle easily. But yeah, it was always a plan to show her as a badass and show her on her heels a little bit more. And then as it progresses, she's just drawing more and more attention from bigger and badder predators that will challenge her more as she progresses through.
This earlier idea you had of the ongoing, in that interpretation, would you have seen like some of the more earlier stumbling sort of hunts where she's initially tracking them and stuff like that?
We wanted to kind of jump ahead. That was a plan, as always, that we would jump ahead. And she's been doing this for I think 15 years in the first arc. It's 15 or 20 years.
Something
20 years. Yeah. So she's kind of a pro at it. So we kind of wanted to leave open the idea for doing sort of prequel type stuff or stuff for early days, for annuals, or if any of those things sort of happened. But for the sake of the story, we really wanted to start her at the position where she was successful at what she's doing, and had already sort of gone through the studying and already dealt with that sort of stuff. Because I find that every Predator film has that kind of, and a lot of Predator stories starts with that thing where the people are caught at a disadvantage and have to figure it out. And I wanted to start something where we were already past that and didn't have to kind of go through this story that we've maybe already seen before.
Okay. So one of the story elements of the Preserve that I was really impressed with, and this is something you mentioned and didn't think you were allowed to do, was the time displacement that the characters have to deal with. And something that we learned when we talked to the Predator screenwriter Alex Litvak was a concept that might have been explored in the sequel to Predators. So I've been wondering ever since those first conversations came up in the comic. I was like, did Ed Litvak talk about this? Were you directly inspired by that? Could have been, or was this one of those what did they call it? When two people have the same idea with nothing.
Idea space stuff. Yeah, if that was a thing that they had been planning, I was completely unaware of it. So that that would have been just two of us coming to the same thing, I think, differently.
That's cool.
But yeah, I had no idea that was the thing they were considering.
And you really didn't think Marvel had, well, Fox Studios. Oh my God, there's too many names. That was something you didn't think studios would let you do.
I just wasn't sure how much they're gonna, because it changes. It brings a whole new element to the book, right? The only thing we just had to make clear is they're not time travelers. They're not going back in time and grabbing people. They're just keeping people in stasis for a period of time. But yeah, it's just because it's kind of like Netho had mentioned, it sort of changes Predators a bit if you go back and look at it and realize that these people could all be from different eras or different times. Obviously ours, it goes further into the future. So it was one of those things where I wasn't sure I was going to get away with, and thankfully they were into it and they really enjoyed it.
May I ask you guys, what's your favorite part of the first arc and the second one?
Oh, we're not used to being put on the spot now. That's unfair.
I think in the first arc, it was just, she was very isolated for the whole story, and then she was kind of captured against her will. And she kind of establishes this rapport with the character who will eventually come with her and be a big part of the second story. But I guess just seeing her have this plan and hold up in the ship, and then it just all goes to hell. And then just at the end, she's like, I mean, it's just her and the other survivor, and she's just like, all right, come with me. Like, I don't know, I thought that whole end sequence was really well done. And as far as the second story, I also liked her kind of questioning herself, and like she had kept this information to herself quite a bit. And it was kind of nuanced in that the OWLF characters, they weren't really trying to screw her over. They were just kind of, they had their own interests. And so for her, it also caused her to do some like reflection, like, hey, maybe I've been a bit too like blinders on about this whole thing, and I need to work with people more. So I just thought the character moments were, in regards to Theta, were really interesting in both stories.
Yeah, I think was it issue 5 when she's captured in the first run, and we get the story slows down and we get to spend time with her, and I can't remember the scientist's name.
Paolo,
yeah, Paolo. And we actually get to spend a bit of time with her and Paolo, and with Ferrier as well. And she becomes a bit more human rather than, the Predator boogeyman, as I liked to call her as we went through the series. So that was a nice moment as well. In terms of the combat and the fighting and stuff, I really liked the start of issue 3 when Theta takes out the Predator with the hoverbike's not the hoverbike's engine, something else's engine. I forget what it is. Luring the Predator there and doing it that way, because that's pure Predator problem solving, in my opinion. Using what's around you and your ingenuity to take them out. And again, like Adam said there, with the final issue of the first series, she's setting up this trap. Everything's ready. She knows how the Predator works. We've got to get him in here. We can't give him room to maneuver. And then he just takes one look and goes, I see what you're doing. Throws a bomb in and causes chaos. So that was a great moment from the end of that run. Preserve. I can't forgive you, Ed, for killing the Brit. I really, really got attached to the Bruiser, and with I think it was the final cover, has him in the Predator armor that Paolo and Theta in as well, and I was like, okay, cool. It looks like we've got a new addition to the team going forwards, and I actually really liked him, the axe. And then he doesn't even get to use the axe. You just brutally murder him, and I was like,
he was that was a last minute change. Originally, he was going to survive, and he would have been around for the third. And I don't know, there was just something with the pacing or something that was going on in that last issue where I'm like, something's not working, and then when I offed him, I'm like, I actually really like that character a lot. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things when you're writing, you're like, am I just too attached to this character and not putting them in harm's way in the way that they need to be? And yeah, unfortunately, he ended up dying. But up until that moment, through the original outline, through my original pitch, he survived until the end. And then it was just when I was writing that issue and trying to figure out what wasn't working that I unfortunately took him out.
Ed, I'm
It hurt
good.
me too.
I'm good.
For what it's worth, it hurt me too.
And there was some fantastic splash pages as well for Preserve. You know, that I think it's the last one of issue 3 where you have the Predator above Paolo and I forget which of the characters there with him. Omar, is it? Maybe.
Yes.
You know, that was a gorgeous splash page there. There was quite a few. The introduction of the River Ghosts in this run as well, being a huge fan of Predators. You know, when they showed up and you've got those great panels and of them all running and leaping. Yes.
That
Yeah,
was
that's the one I'm thinking. That is the end of 3, isn't it? Yeah. Or 4. Wait, was it 5-issue run? Yeah, 5-issue run for
5 issues, yeah.
Yeah. These slowly decreasing number of issues between Predator and Aliens throwing me off. But yeah, there was some great splash pages in that one, full page spreads that were brilliant. Oh, you've thrown me off, Netho. We've flipped it round.
It's great for us to know what fans think about the book, the series, the art, the story, the characters, the choices we have made. This feedback always helps us to keep improving and keep delivering the best book possible.
Glad to be
Another thing I liked was I think the 2 OWLF characters, they had mentioned some of the events of the Predator. So I don't know, it's kind of fun to me, even though the movie that's maybe lesser liked among fans, like when it gets a nod, it's like, oh, okay, that's still kind of there and appreciated. Like, because I don't know, there's things I like about that movie. So to see it kind of brought in the lore, and I felt like the Predator Hunting Grounds video game handled that story point really well also. So
and it was great to actually see them back as OWLF as well, because I genuinely think it is.
They were Stargazer in Predator, right?
Yeah. just like the overall EU, you know, has not taken advantage of this concept of OWLF. You know, it was not a thing until the Predator, when they rebranded them as Stargazer, and then everybody sort of scrambled around to make it work with some of the tie-in stuff. So I very much greatly appreciated seeing reference to that. And
I feel like on the Preserve we have homaged each one of previous movies somehow on little things like this or designs or characters. It's the tail homage previous movies, and the first arc is something totally new, and the second looks back towards those movies. Then we have both.
It is nice to see everything represented because, you know, fans, you know, we're fickle people in our own rights as well, just as everybody's fickle people. You know, we're not all the same. So to see them all acknowledged in some way or another, however small, however significant, you know, it's a little bit of but what's the Avatar thing? I see you. So, you know, just a little bit of side nerd in there.
And this next one's for Ed. One of the things that we had mentioned after reading your first arc on the Game Preserve Planet, so second arc overall, was the lack of the Berserker or Super Predators like we saw in the setting of the third film. Now they are appearing in your upcoming arc. Were they planned to eventually show up down the line, or was this in response to fans wondering about this?
Yeah, this is always planned. Like the sort of going back to the idea, what I was saying earlier, that like, you know, where we want to establish Theta as like this sort of force to be reckoned with. That we also wanted each of her adversaries to get bigger and stronger and faster as she moves forward. So, you know, the hope was always that we could continue, and then like the predator that we have in the third, who is called the Nightmare Hunter in the script, but just for the sake of naming him, is
I like that better than super predators. I'm deeply offended by the name super predator. So nightmare predator works very well for me.
And he's sort of one of these, like, oversized. Like super predator is a weird one because the term is like bagged down in a lot of political stuff. That's not really connected to the film, but has a connotation. But yeah, so it's probably, we keep saying it's like the most deadly predator, at least has appeared in comics up until this point. Who I don't want to spoil too much of what's coming up, but he earns his name, the Nightmare Hunter. He's like nothing that Theta's ever had to face before.
I'm looking forward to the start of the new series, very much so.
Thanks.
So something that come up to my mind, Ed, on first issue preview of the new arc, I saw the monster that I designed on the preserve, right?
Yeah, they make an appearance at the beginning of the third arc. Yes.
So are they come back to the preserve?
They're not on the preserve. They got there some other way, which will make sense when you get into the book. I don't want to spoil the book for anyone, but there's a way that they get there.
So was that a specific callback from you in the writing, to Netho's?
Yeah. So the big thing that's going on in this next arc is, in the preserve, we've established this idea that there are people being held in stasis, like that. Theta refers to them as stasis farms, where she knows that predators are grabbing people from Earth and keeping them somewhere to release them. And so she's trying to find that place. So she's after, again, these stasis farms. And so there are some things that will call back to the preserve, because those two stories are directly connected. Even if I think there's 6 years has passed between volume 2 and volume 3, but she's still on this, quest. She's very obsessive about things, and so it's kind of stuck on this thing.
That's fair. Cool. So was there anything either of you wanted to do on the runs that you ultimately couldn't at the end? They let you get away with your time with your stasis, Ed, but was there things that couldn't be done? Netho, why don't you lead us off on this one? And anything from an artistic point of view that was vetoed?
On Predator, you can do anything, perhaps sometimes I wanted to do less violence and use more shadows and, different cameras that would allow reader to imagine what was happening instead of showing them, here's this predator chopping off an arm off something. I wanted to do more shadow and silhouettes to show off those moments. And Sarah asked me, no, don't use shadows. Show it. Show each detail of it. Show it blood, show action, show everything. It was in the first issue, the first couple pages. And also Ed asked me to do more widescreen and everything inside panel instead of going nuts with comic style storytelling, people flowing off the panel and coming off the page. That's not what he had in mind, and I agree. I think it works better looking like a movie. So we tried to, I think, about 5, 6 pages. I was doing my thing, then he asked me to do that way, and I changed a little bit moving forward. I think the decision makes a lot of sense.
As for me, the only thing I didn't get away with was the thing I told you guys about, was basically just trying to get Dutch in there. That's really the only big pushback I've had. and that was something I knew was coming. That I knew I wouldn't be able to get away with. So
Right, fair. Okay.
I gave it the old college try and didn't succeed.
And before we sign off, I did have a question for you from our community. First off, Patreon member Zach Walker would like to know if Hollywood decided to adapt your Predator work, who would you cast as Theta? So why don't we start with you, Netho? Who do you think should be cast as Theta?
Um, I didn't think through about that because I feel like Kev draws her in a very different way than I did. And Giuseppe Camuncoli, who did the preserve covers, he did in another different way. So we have three versions of theater in my vision, which I believe could be three different actors to do to get the whole. But I don't know. I think Ed could make a better decision about that.
I honestly have no idea. Like the one actress I could think of who kind of looks the part already could do it is Brianna Hildebrand, who played Negasonic Teenage Warhead in Deadpool 2. Like she's already got the look.
I can see that. Yes.
Makes sense.
But it's not something I've really considered too much. So that's my cheat answer because she looks like her in the movie anyway.
Fair. Well, that's actually everything from us. But before we let you both go, are there any anecdotes or thoughts that you'd like to share that we haven't given you the opportunity to with any of our questions?
I do have a question. Do you guys know if it have ever happened a comic character from Predator series become, character in the movies?
I mean, the AvP
No.
film took some inspiration from the comics, but yeah, I don't think there's been a direct.
Well, no, there's not been a direct one. I mean, because Prey did completely different to what the comics had done in terms of the story of like the pistol, for example, and Lex. Yeah, while there's some influence from Machiko, it's very minor, very minor. No, not when it comes to Predators. But then again, not even when it comes to Alien. Both series are very much cinematic, and then everything else rather than like your MCU comics inspiring the cinematic world. Unfortunately, because we all want to see an actual adaptation of the original AvP. We also desperately want just an adaptation of Randy Stradley's first AvP.
It was planned at some point as an anime, but fell through.
Yeah, true. Well,
I saw that.
Peter Briggs's first takes on AvP were not quite a one-to-one adaptation of the comic, but there was a lot of influence there. Very close. Yeah.
Maybe Theta will be the first.
I'd love to see your Predator idea as like a anthology thing. That would be really cool.
Well,
How about
fingers
you, Ed?
crossed. No, I think we covered everything. I can't think of anything else.
Cool. Do you do any pros, by the way?
No pros for me. Just comics. I have started writing video games as well recently, and I used to make short films back in the day that I would write and work with other people on. But yeah, I don't know. Prose has never really appealed to me in terms of
So
writing.
no interest in a book, a Predator book.
No, I like collaborating with other people. I don't like working fully alone. I would just kind of go crazy, I think. So I like working with other people. And so doing stuff like comics is perfect for me,
Cool. Fair enough. Do you guys have any social outlets that you'd like to direct people to learn more about you, or any sales pages? Netho, do you sell any of the artwork, the original artwork that you do that you want to direct people to?
I think right now you can see some of my pages at Comic Con Arts. and at eBay from time to time. Right now, there are a few pages of Predator on eBay, my original pencils, and I'm always posting on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you follow me there, you can see my work. I still post pencils from Predator and post pencils from my latest works, which is Daredevil right now.
And you're just at Netho Diaz on Twitter, aren't you? All one.
Excuse me?
Your handle on Twitter is just Netho Diaz, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Two Z's.
Yes,
Netho
two Z's.
Diaz.
Okay. Yes. What about yourself? Had any outlets to direct people to?
Yeah, just Twitter at Ed Brisson. Nice and easy. My website's edbrisson.com. I have a newsletter at edbrisson.substack.com. So those are the main places folks can find me.
And we'll include links to those places in the news post that goes up with this this podcast episode as well, and in the YouTube description for the YouTube version. So down there.
Perfect.
Well, thank you both for joining us. Very much appreciated. It's been nice nerding out about Predator with you guys.
All right. Well, thanks for having us.
And thank you once again to Ed and Netho for taking the time to come and answer our questions about where did this concept come from. Netho, what did you think about this design? I enjoyed that one. They were very nice gents, and it was fun to dig into the particulars of Marvel's Predator. Adam, do you want to let people know where they can find more of our podcasts or more of our interviews?
Thanks again for listening or watching. If you'd like to check out our main hub of activity, that would be our website, avpgalaxy.net, where you have all the latest news on happenings in the franchises, editorials, reviews, and discussion boards where you can engage with other fans. We're also on all the major social media channels, Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. And also a big thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you'd like to support what we do at Alien vs. Predator Galaxy, check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/AvP Galaxy.
Indeed. Well, thank you everybody for watching or listening. This has been Corporal Hicks
and RidgeTop.
Get into the chopper.